and we're delighted to have her here as the keynote today for us. Okay.
Thank you, Graham. Hello, everyone. It's really good to be here. I think Graham covered most of the ground, so sorry if there's any repetition. I'll be using a script. I'm neurodivergent, so I appreciate your patience and understanding. So as you know, I'm an equalities designer. I'm Natasha Trotman. During this presentation, it's framed around hybrid ND imaginaries, and by that I mean neurodivergent and neurodiversity, exploring unofficial discourse across neurodiversity, equality, and belonging. And I'll take you on a journey through my practice, spanning research projects, commissions, and self-directed investigations, and why I do what I do. So I am a polymath, as well as being a quality designer. I'm also engaged in other creative endeavors, such as being an artist in residence at Somerset House, a design expert for the Design Council. I'm also an SEND practitioner. My work focuses on mental difference, neurodiversity, and disability, and that's across modalities as well. So intersectional inclusion, and that's by looking at the complexities and the layers that make us all who we are, essential to my practice, which extends the frontiers of knowledge around mental difference, or at least that's the hope, and bringing the intersections into focus. So some of what I do is investigative play and policy design to reframe mainstream ideas of equality, equity, diversity, access, and inclusion. And this is one of the many ways, well, you can see a couple of my experimentations there with my brain being scanned and such. Many ways to foster new conversations and new approaches to the world and its challenges. And I just realized I didn't put my timer on. So I will do that now. Done, thank you. Okay, so neurodivergent, that refers to those who experience and process the world in distinct and unique ways due to neurological differences, including but not limited to autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, learning disabilities, Tourette's, ADHD, or ADHD, and adverse childhood experiences. The term mental difference may also be used, as this is inclusive of persons living with a dementia. Now onto the projects. So this project is Design and the Mind, and this was a 2-year project that focused on the joint creation and engagement with neurodiverse groups and neurodivergent non-typical individuals. This is a project done in partnership with between the Helen Hamlin Centre for Design and the Wellcome Trust. And the aim was to enable Wellcome via the Wellcome Collection Hub, which is a transdisciplinary research base, to improve its approach to inclusivity by addressing issues surrounding cognitive, physical, and digital access to its transdisciplinary research hub in Wellcome Collection and its resources for a variety of users such as visitors, residents, and employees, so multiple stakeholders. So this involves looking at the ways in which Wellcome engages and co-creates with neurodiverse audiences, centering neurodivergent and disabled people using the social model of disability, with a focus on collaboration, research, public engagement, within the Wellcome Collection Hub and the wider Wellcome, which I'll go on to explain more during the rest of the presentation. So Design in the Mind, although based in London, had a much wider reach, with a publication being delivered in Dublin and case studies, interviews and prototype testing being carried out across the UK, as you can see the little dots on the map. So that's Cambridge, Oxford, Southampton, Manchester, Devon, Cornwall, for example. Okay, the hub. All right, the Wellcome Collection Hub. A lot of what I did for Design of the Mind was based primarily in the Wellcome Collection Hub, a transdisciplinary research space, as I mentioned before. During my 2 years in this space, there were 2 separate research groups. So I was quite lucky, actually. I got to engage with 2 different groups that specialized in really interesting things. That was right up my street. So those awarded the research residencies were created out of Mind, and that group focused on understanding rare dementias from those with lived experience and their carers, and Heart and Soul. That was the second residency, and that was a group of people with and without learning disabilities and autistic people who were exploring human value in residence. So these 2 distinct groups, they had a common interest in mind, and this allowed me to really delve into the overlaps and also sort of the unseen areas, which I like to call the shadow elements. And this gave me the opportunity to carry out a number of ongoing engagements, including several co-creation workshops. So what you can see here is some of the things that were carried out to delve into Design in the Mind, and this was carried out through primary and secondary research with mixed methods, you can see in the imagery. Okay, so due to the constraints, well, it was initially a 1-year project, but being my neurodivergent self, I managed to sort of delve in and interrogate lots of things and find really salient aspects. So it was extended into a 2-year project, and the types of minds and themes explored and engaged with focus on those who are neurodivergent and neurotypical, disabled, and also non-disabled, but in particular, people who were initially were living with a dementia, but as I mentioned before, due to the other residency, it then extended into the other neurotypes. So a key part of Design in the Mind were the participants. It was really important to empower not only neurodiverse people, so that includes every type of mind, but neurodivergent people and disabled people in particular, the citizen researchers who are neurodivergent siblings and cognitive cousins, because I like to think of us all as one big family, explorers of the Wellcome Collection and experts in their own lived experiences. So the citizen researchers provided contributions to the project, informing the iterations and offerings, placing the target group at the core of the project. And this provided a space, a platform, and empowerment for neurodivergent people and groups and the neurodiverse, because I believe we all have a part to play and we're all impacted. So this is an important part of Design in the Mind. Neurodivergent voices, thoughts, feelings, and needs matter. So Design in the Mind spotlighted the commonalities and the intersections known so far to be experienced by all of the groups that I've mentioned so far. So there are shared goals, challenges, and triumphs, but also illuminating the unseen and formerly unconsidered also help to inform the methods and approaches and making a difference through Design in the Mind outcomes. And this is one of the quotes of someone who was engaging in the project, and it was selected because it's just looking at the shift in illuminating the shift in the frames of reference, and also just acknowledging and accepting difference as well. So that covers a sense of belonging too, which is really important for everyone. So the themes that came out across the project were autonomy, engagement, and inclusion. So being, as I mentioned before, I was primarily based in the Welcome Collection Hub. So being in the hub gave me the opportunity to design an event for neurodivergent children and young people. And that was in partnership with the Institute of Imagination, and it was called Our Brains and Us. And it was a 5-day hub program. And it consisted of interactive sensorial games and toolkits for multiple stakeholders that I mentioned before. And there was over 700 visitors and over 700 recorded engagements of people taking part in the interactive sensorial games and all of what Our Brains and Us had to offer across the 5 days. This helped inform the toolkits. I'll expand on this a bit later in the presentation, like toolkits. So the Hub 5-day program, insights and other findings from year 1 were carried over to year 2. Sorry, I'm getting excited. Year 2 focused on how to embed the learnings from year 1. Okay, so we did previously talk about the public event. And then there was also an additional public event with the citizen researchers and the general public. And this event provided a platform for the citizen researchers to share their unique perspectives on the project with the general public and share their thoughts on how these learnings can be embedded. So the next steps were to create offerings that consider the entirety of a Welcome collection and hub visitors' whole experience. And by that, I mean pre-welcome, pre-on-site visits. And that informed something that was coined Heads Up. So that informed the Heads Up experience. And this involved looking at the needs and requirements from disabled and neurodivergent frames of reference. And this also means that the experience starts before people leave their homes. This sought to provide an enhanced experience such as remote introductions to toolkits, neurodivergent focused signposting, alternative guides, helping people set their expectations prior to arriving and helping them, hopefully it will inform how they acclimatize once in the space. So that also involved using alternative communication methods and approaches, and the legacy items left behind by Design in the Mind are the physical tools, the training and guidance, recommendations, new relationships and networks. The most salient aspects of the research have been used to create practical designs that assist the visitors' overall experience through the Umbrella Initiative, as I previously mentioned, Heads Up, aiming to build on and improve pre- and post-Welcome collection experiences through interventions as previously mentioned. And I'm actually speaking with Welcome at the moment about some aspects of this that's illuminated and how to really harness it so that visitors who are not within the normative frame can get the best out of their experience. This also aims to foster new, broader networks of visitor audiences who feel engaged and empowered to visit and contribute to the experience. And this has been done with the visitor experience team and the access team. What you can see here are some really early iterations of the toolkits. So this one is already get set go prototype. Okay, and that is a bit more of an evolved iteration. Okay, what you can see here is a toolkit, or it's visual for a toolkit for the wider Welcome, and that's called Find It. And that is a very early iteration of the Find It toolkit. The toolkit sought to complement and build on the emergent and expanding inclusive offerings at Welcome through bringing in alternative modes of communication, methods and approaches, impacting how Welcome not only engage with, but also communicates with its audiences. During the course of the research project, there was much learning, reflection, and reflexive thinking on my part. And during this three-pronged journey, well, it was three-pronged for me, that cultivated a growth in my practice, neurodivergent identity, and my relationship with the areas where multiple identities intersect, and what I call shadow dynamics. This galvanized me into deepening my understanding, a heightened curiosity, and a newfound mission. I also had some questions. So, who's still being overlooked? Who are the knowledge brokers and why? And this informed my practice going forward. So as previously mentioned, my work examines different ways of experiencing and processing the world. And this is done through multiple projects and focuses on a range of people, including those with a mental difference, hidden disabilities, disabled people, and neurodivergent communities. I also work with neurotypical people and non-disabled people. I use transdisciplinary research methods, approaches, and I work across multiple sectors. I mentioned it earlier, but what is an equalities designer? Well, what drives me? Curiosity, intellectual humility, justice. I've coined the term equalities designer as my work is justice focused, works across multiple modes, and is informed by a rights-based approach due to disabled and neurodivergent needs and desires, in particular, those multiply marginalized, those who are overlooked and even erased far too often. I use a suite of multidisciplinary skills to address pain points for underserved, minoritized, marginalized groups. You could even call me an equity alchemist if you like. I hope to transmute neurodivergent, disability, and interlocked macro and micro pain points into solutions using multimodal means. So, are you sitting comfortably? Really, I should have asked you that in the beginning. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that might not be a good thing. As we're aware, there is one geographical world. However, there are many worlds within worlds that people are living right across from you. And if they are designed out due to normative notions, needs and requirements, and by that I mean non-disabled, neurotypical needs and requirements, those in the disabled and ND communities are faced with misfitting designs, offerings, and services that do not fit their whole selves and requirements. Life can be uncomfortable, a pain point. So mainstream, normative comfort may be coming at a cost. This is an image I took after being ejected from a public space, as my ND way of being, coupled with my racialized body mind, was seen as a security threat. This helps inform my practice. I use lived and learned experiences that challenge me to inform my practice, as mentioned, and galvanize me into action. To explore the pain points, human costs, and create solutions, I draw down on my various skills, lived and learned experiences, and use them to traverse various spaces with the aim of illuminating unheard and underserved voices and mapping out and designing in better futures for all through articulated outputs. Yes, work has been done, but there's still quite a lot to do. Put simply, good design enables, bad design disables. Good design works within a continuum of access, looking at situational, temporary, and long-term needs, access, and requirements. Whilst working across my multiple projects, I started to realize that not every voice was being heard. People and groups and producers of knowledge were being designed out, or neurodivergent and disabled producers of knowledge were being designed out. This led me to have a strong resonance with the social model of disability and a rights-based approach. And a rights-based approach then undergirds these efforts to help push for what we neurodivergent and disabled people are entitled to and deserve. And this informs my work. I have multiple aspects of myself simultaneously existing, each with their own affordances and challenges and even penalties, as we all do. And this is known as intersectionality. And this term was coined by civil rights advocate Kimberly Crenshaw. Well, that's if you believe in labels. If you don't believe in them, that's okay. They believe in you. Throughout the pandemic, I worked within special measures on the ground, delivering sessions. The first year was indeed a year like no other. I found myself at a point where the various aspects of my being met at the crossroads. It provided an invaluable moment of clarity. Yes, there are complexities, but we must lean into them. Equitable offerings that contribute to meaningful change on policy and practice are vital. Presently, among my various projects, this includes being one of the Design Council experts, as I mentioned before, providing my voice and expertise in a landscape where there are not many voices like mine. It would be really lovely if it was a chorus or more, even a symphony, an ensemble like mine. I'm also one of the co-developers for a Welcome Social Justice Curriculum brought into existence by Teresa Cisneros and Selene Burns. I also work with local authorities in various ways, such as co-production, on projects where disabled and neurodivergent people create and advocate for ourselves on our terms using our frames of reference, values, and preferred modes. I engage in policy design. You'll also find me in places where my voice is not always wanted in that moment, but adds value. What's woven through my practice is curiosity, intellectual humility, equity, and convergence. These aspects have taken me on an explorative journey through specialisms, neurotypes, modalities, and communities. And one of my aims and hopes is to provide inspiration through my practice and break down barriers, providing encouragement to my neurodivergent siblings and cognitive cousins of today and tomorrow. Hopefully demonstrate that creative audacity and adding value in your own unique way is possible regardless of ability. For people who identify as non-disabled or neurotypical, we do have shared stakes in creating equitable futures and addressing ableism, disableism, and prejudice, as we are all on the clock, we are all aging. So, as I mentioned before, I work across multiple modes, and Neuromnemonic is a 360 interactive film, immersive experience, and it illuminates the multiply marginalized experiences and textures throughout the pandemic through an interactive poetic piece, and it amplifies underserved voices that exist at the intersections, the in-between and overlooked, and restoring the previously erased. Neuromnemonic has been exhibited by the National Gallery and Art in Flux, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea's Art Week, and Oz Electronica, for example. Okay, I can't comment any more about that. These are but a few ways to interrogate and explore intersectional, underserved, under-resourced areas. I'm sure there are many more. This one was meant to play, but I don't think it's enabled. Is tech gone? Okay, so this is called Subset Reset, and this was commissioned by Somerset House Studios for Hyperfunctional Ultra Healthy, and it looks at the trials and the triumphs of the everyday from neurodivergent and disabled perspectives. So again, delving into those alternative frames of references, and explores non-normative perceptions and experiences of the everyday, the trials, the triumphs and challenges through the contributions of its participants who have each worked with me to develop a verse of the narration. The film invites us to consider non-normative lived experiences and ways of being. Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you for your patience.
Future, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Back to back, we face each other. Back to back, we face each other. Back to back, we face each other. Non-linear. Cycles, rhythms, spoons, move. Cycles, rhythms, spoons, move. Cycles, rhythms, spoons, move. Back to back, we face each other. Past, present, future. Cognitive siblings, spiritual cousins, past, present, future. Back to back, we face each other, past, present, future, non-linear.
Butterfly kisses, rapidly blinking my eyes. Against the tide, existence and events. Quantifying rates of change. Quantities, material reality. All tools for mediating challenges. Proximity, clarity, balancing in human form. My name is...
Shimmering sunlight, moonlight, dancing through numbers, stellar brightness, sharing my light. My name is...
There's so little and so much of it. The sounds fill up and spill out ad infinitum. Neo-divergent and non-normative. Cousins, siblings, social justice, inclusive transitions. Chronos waits for no one. Onward with with the mission. My name is
non-linear, fluid interactions with fractals, fractions, time-based social acrobatics to meet the mainstream satisfaction. It's not one size fits all. Tick, tock, fracture. My name is past, present, future. Tick, tock, tick, tock,
Past,
tick,
present, future.
back to back.
Past, present, future.
Back to back.
Tick, tock,
We face each other.
back to back,
Back
we
to back.
face each other.
Face each
Back
other.
to back, we
Face
face
each
each
other.
other.
face each other.
Back to back.
We
Back
face
to
each
back.
other.
We face each other.
Cycles, rhythms,
Circles,
Cycles,
cycles,
rhythms,
circles,
back to
cycles,
back.
rhythms,
Past, present, future. Cognitive siblings, spiritual cousins, face each other. Present, future. Back to back, we face each other. Past, present, future. Non-linear.
How do I get the presentation back?
You need to share your screen now.
Okay. So, thank you. These are but a few ways to interrogate and explore intersectional, underserved and under-resourced areas. I'm sure there are many more.
For a long time I grew up and, you know, I wasn't able to express myself. I didn't have the means to sort of put myself into the picture.
Sounds pessimistic, but there's some optimistic things coming up. Thank you. And thanks for your patience once again. Oh, no, that's not what we want. Okay. So I've shown you examples of what's important to me as an equalities designer and across the intersections, across multi-modalities in regards to lived experience and multi-modalization, difference and concerning the named pain points that I've mentioned throughout my presentation. My hope is that as we emerge from this pandemic / post-pandemic induced chrysalis physically, digitally, differently, that we synchronize our watches, as I mentioned before, on the clock, we synchronize our watches to make some change, collectively lean into the complexities, task ourselves with exploring unknown areas, and be unified by shared goals and common ground. With the hope that this unified position will be unending like the infinity symbol or Fibonacci spiral. My aims are not only to understand how neurodivergent and disabled people are locked out within the, around the areas mapped out during my presentation, but how we can improve this by better design and embed change through meaningful policies and practice. So that when someone states to turn up to a digital or physical space, there are mechanisms in place that enable people like myself and those within the disabled and neurodivergent community to do so without trauma, without harm, or costing us any spoons. Well, maybe a few spoons, but not too many spoons. And by spoons, I mean energy. And if you want to learn more about spoon theory, the name of the person that created that is called Christine Miserandino. So all of that being said, perhaps it's blue sky, but I believe that the equitable change I've talked about and what I've mapped out within the presentation is possible. Thank you.
Natasha, thank you very much indeed for that very thought-provoking talk. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask Natasha? at this point. I hope you'll stay for lunch, Natasha, and never chat with everyone here. Yes, we've got one here from sure.
Hello. I wanted to ask a bit more about the toolkits that you mentioned about halfway. Like, how did you decide what was important to go into those toolkits? Was that informed by the co-creation in any way that you mentioned, or what was like? How did you decide what was important?
Yeah, using various methods. I think primary research and engagement with whoever your target group is, or your community, or the people you're trying to help, or the pain points you're trying to engage with. It's done on a grassroots level. So it's direct from the source, like what the pain points are. Wasn't an assumption on the pain points. It was taking journeys with people, talking to people about what doesn't work for them in a museum experience, or getting to the museum, or when they leave, because it's like it's a whole thing. Like there's the pre, then there's the during, then there's the post element, and it's all interconnected. So yeah, it's really important to find out from the actual people that, or the people, the source of the pain point, like who's experiencing the pain point. Hope that weren't too rambly.
Yeah, thank you so much for this fantastic presentation. My question is about co-creation. You mentioned that you're interested in co-creation as a technique, and I was wondering, as an artistic practitioner, do you also sometimes work with co-creation as a method?
Yeah. I'm at the moment I'm exploring co-production. But yeah, co-creation, I think is slightly different. But yeah, I engage with that as well, because I'm really interested in equalized spaces. I was in a meeting recently and somebody was talking about pyramids and stuff. And they were like, yeah, and we just need to make sure that the people at the top of the pyramid trickle down the information. No, we want it, like we want that continuum we've been that I've talked about. We want that equalized, flat level approach. And then that way, I guess gatekeeping can't be eliminated, but it will reduce it. And in regards to co-production, what I'm doing at the moment, I'm working with local authorities and within equalized spaces, with my multiple hats, but with decision makers. So it's not people making decisions on behalf of neurodivergent disabled people, assuming what it is we want and need, but we're there advocating for ourselves.
Thank you for such a kind of beautifully poetic, but also kind of socially just articulation of the kind of complexity of the problems that should be important to all of us, no matter where we situate ourselves on the kind of non-neurodiversity spectrum. And I wanted to ask you about some of the projects you've been involved in and the outcomes of those projects in terms of what you would consider a success of some of the attempts to design in and to bring people, non-neurodiverse people, into spaces. So could you give us a couple of examples, especially of cultural spaces and art spaces, where this has broadly worked, where your work and work of other kind of activists, kind of social justice warriors, people who are thinking across the spectrum, as well as evaluating it with a neurodiverse community, could say, well, this might not be perfect, but this is actually a successful attempt to design in rather than design out?
Yeah, it's pulling on my spoons, but I'm going to attempt to answer. So I guess it's about, I don't think there's a hard and fast answer for that. I think some of it is modeling, and some of it's not going to be like bang wallop in your face change. It's going to be gradual, because it's moving towards like new culture and a gradual step change. As I said before, when I started the residency in the Welcome Hub, it was with a residency called Created Out of Mind, and they focused on dementias, and the research with Design in the Mind was going very well, and it was extended for another year. And then there was a second residency, and that was Heart and Soul. Now, yeah, they secured that in their own right, but the tide was already changing and moving towards more inclusive ways of doing things, methods and approaches. So I think that helped inform the environment that was more conducive to disability focused research residencies and such. And modeling as well. Modeling is important. Even me being here, standing here now, is modeling, because everybody has their own type of schema or thoughts or ideas of a person that looks like me or that acts like I do. So yeah, that helps to better inform the thoughts of somebody that presents as I do. Yeah.
Thank you.